Hello, my name is Buddy Fleur. I'm currently at Smyrna Elementary in Louisville, Kentucky, and this is my final capstone project, and it is centered on positive behavior intervention supports, intervention and strategies based on the referral data here at Smyrna Elementary, and this is for EDA 792 in spring of 2018. So what is PBIS? PBIS stands for Positive Behavioral Intervention Supports. It's a systematic, school-wide approach to creating a culture that emphasizes positive behavior and meeting behavior expectations. The focus is on academic, behavioral, and social contexts of the school where behavior issues can manifest. To give a little background on my project, I actually started at the high school level and tailored my previous research for high school level children, focusing typically on ninth grade and trying to look at patterns for repeat offenders, why they keep getting referrals and things like that. And then I was forced to change schools, and so now I'm at the elementary level. And what I've found throughout the course of this program and my research is that PBIS doesn't change dramatically at levels. It is tailored to where you're at, and the original focus was, can PBIS be successful in a large urban high school? And so what I've done here is tailored it to the elementary level, where PBIS has been shown to be much more effective because the minds of younger children are easier to mold and shaped into getting the positive behavior results that we so desire. So the ultimate goal of PBIS is to improve the school climate, prevent problem behavior by establishing school-wide expectations and rewarding positive behavior. And this is from Mergler, 2014. What we're looking for in general is students who follow school expectations, and we want to try to build up positive behavior results for them. We want to recognize and reward those students who do follow and meet expectations on a regular basis, and to go ahead and try to develop a program that that keeps that going, so that it helps curtail any other problematic behavior that may arise. So we accomplish this by not only changing student behavior, but also by changing adult behavior, emphasizing positive and consistent interactions with students. So part of PBIS is not just, finding ways to inflict punishment on students who do not meet expectations or follow school rules, but it's more about building up relationships, building relationships with those students who do have trouble sometimes adjusting. A lot of times you might have a student who comes into the school who's new to your school, and for whatever reason they have a difficult time adjusting, and part of PBIS is that we build up relationships with those students so that they understand what the expectations are and that we won't settle for anything less. At its core, PBIS stresses prevention rather than punishment, as I've already said. The foundation of the PBIS model is a multi-tiered approach toward building the desired school behavior and culture. Although the majority of PBIS programs are three-tiered systems that include a number of behavioral support strategies at each tier, it's important to note that PBIS is not a one-size-fits-all approach. And as I said before, when I started this research, at the high school level, implementing a complete PBIS strategy or plan is not necessarily, how do I put this? It's not necessarily a catch-all for everything. You have to approach it in steps. You have to break it down into small parts, small pieces, and take it one step at a time. At the elementary level, I think you can develop an action plan that is more school-wide, more broad, and then tailor it to each individual classroom, and let the teachers kind of bring in their own personalities into their own classroom, bring in their own nuances and things that they are good with. It's designed to be flexible, as I just stated. You want to be flexible enough to fit various school cultures, contexts, and needs, and can be implemented at various educational levels and settings. Obviously, there's plenty of research out there that shows PBIS being successful at the elementary level, and I was very fortunate enough to land in a spot where my research could really stay pretty much the same, but I'm just changing the context of how I'm looking at it. Instead of looking at it at teenage students, I'm looking at it from a school-wide perspective for elementary age students. Given that PBIS involves a school-wide culture change for both students and adults, the school principal plays an essential role in PBIS implementation. For the principal's role is to be the leaders, to establish the expectations, develop relationships with the students, be visible, be that person who everyone knows is in charge and is able to show the leadership and model correct responses to all of the students, good and negative. So what that leader needs to do to start with is develop a PBIS committee. Luckily, I'm fortunate enough that we have one here at Smyrna, and I was very excited to be a part of that right from the beginning. A PBIS committee lead is usually led by a school counselor or assistant principal, and it includes teachers from all grade levels to discuss and develop strategies that help foster positive behavioral supports. These Tier 1 supports involve setting clear and consistent expectations, teaching those students' expectations to the students at the school-wide level. So you have your whole school action plan that sets school-wide expectations that everyone needs to meet, and we have that here at Smyrna, and I think the plan is good. We just need to continue to follow through on it. Tier 2 school employees direct the focus toward the students who do not respond to school-wide expectations set forth in Tier 1. Those students are the ones we keep a close eye on, we keep lots of behavioral data on, and we're meeting with them, contacting parents, doing the things necessary to help reinforce what the expectations are. Meetings if necessary. If it has to go farther because of undesirable behavior, then we follow the code of conduct as to how far we have to go. Tier 3 takes behavior intervention to another and often individualized level, where employees work one-on-one with students in order to develop a plan of action to improve behavior. So this may mean that your school might have a behavior coach, which we currently do not. This is something that possibly is something of interest for many schools. Having talked to different people who have had behavior coaches, they've said that it can go both ways. If the behavior coach is not a strong personality type, they can sometimes be duped into having students who know that they can go to this person just to get out of class. So it has to be something that's not necessarily fun and not necessarily something that they want to be at, but it has to have some meaning to it, that they know that when they go there to visit that person, they have to have a clear expectation as to what they're going there to do. Given that PBIS involves school-wide culture change for both students and adults, the school principal plays the essential role, as I've already said, in the implementation. Achieving faculty buy-in can lead to better implementation of PBIS programs. as well as yield more successful results and maximize sustainability of the approach. At my former school where I started the research, it was very difficult. We were a large high school. It was very hard to get every teacher to buy into certain strategies that we were trying to use to meet the expectations. At a school of our size here at Smyrna, it's much easier to get all 20 teachers to buy in as opposed to having 100 teachers to buy in. We are able to work more closely. We can share strategies, talk about what's working with certain students and what isn't. As a special area teacher, I find it interesting to be able to collaborate with all of my teachers to find out what's working, and I can try different things with different grade levels to see what works and what doesn't. In addition to getting teacher buy-in, it's also the principal's responsibility to offer quality professional development, promote consistency in the form of common goals and common language, and provide the necessary funding or resources to support PBIS implementation. I feel like we have struggled a little bit with certain things, mostly given our situation this year with overall leadership. Not to beat a dead horse, but I feel like that our leadership as far as visibility wasn't there, and I think that going forward, whoever becomes the new principal needs to have a very visual presence in the hallways, in the lunchroom, classrooms also, in order to establish good leadership. I think it will gain respect from the staff, and more importantly, the students will know who's in charge and what the expectations are. It also develops systems for supporting students and collecting behavioral data and recognizing those students who are following the school's values, norms on a regular basis. This one is very important because it shows that students who meet the expectations all the time are recognized for their good work. You know, a lot of times we spend so much time and energy focusing on that one or two students who are causing the majority of the problems, and we forget about the students who do all of the good work. And what PBIS really is about developing programs to help us recognize those students, to show that they too are appreciated for all the hard work that they do. And I think that throughout the school year we have developed a lot of different things along the way to show the support for those students. And I think the latest round in us adding the house system to award points to those who are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and having all the students split up into houses, i.e. the Harry Potter model, I think has been a very helpful, useful tool. Now, implementing it halfway through the school year was probably not ideal, but the fact that it's there going to next year and hopefully will continue leads me to believe that there are good things yet to come with it. So what I've done is taken referral data. My research centers around the referral data comparison for the last 2 school years, and what I'm going to do is analyze a little bit here and look at a couple numbers and just make some assumptions based on the data that I have found as to, you know, why we are where we are at this moment. As you can see from the 16-17 school year, there were 452 behavioral events that were documented as referrals by 128 students. For 17-18, as of last week, there have been 697 behavioral events documented over 110 students. So we've had a almost 65% increase in referrals and a decrease in the number of students who have been given referrals. So that is a very, very disturbing trend. It's good that we have less students getting referrals, but the fact that we have a higher concentration of students getting multiple referrals is very disturbing. Now, to preface that, we do have roughly 50 less students in the school this year than last year also. So moving forward, this is the top 3 referral submissions over the last 2 years, so the comparison here. Number 1, failure to respond to questions or requests. This is tier 1, 2, or 3 type of referral. It can be a conference, it can be a phone call, it can escalate to suspension if need be, depending on the circumstances. In 16-17, there were 126 of these, which represented almost 29% of the total referrals. In 17-18, there have been 168 referrals written for this instance, which makes up a smaller percentage to only 25%, but we have a large increase in the amount of times that it's happened. And again, there's less students causing these offenses. Number 2 from 16-17 is fighting. So this one's pretty straightforward. There were 107 events of fighting last school year, which again made up about 24.5% of referrals. This year there have been 128 events of fighting, but again the percentage has decreased because we have many more referrals that have been turned in. So this percentage is only 19%. And then the third category is intentionally throwing objects. We have lots of students who like to throw things when they get upset. So last year it was 46 incidents, which made up 10.5%. This year there have been almost over double that, 97 incidents of throwing or kicking objects that would cause some sort of classroom disturbance or possible injury. And this is made up almost 15% of the total referrals. So as you can see, this one right here has been our largest increase. And so what that says to me is the volatility of some of our students has increased. And for that, that speaks to probably a mental health issue that we've had to combat this school year. If you look at the demographics, demographics are pretty straightforward. What I'm going to look at here, we have 14% of the referrals from last school year were made up of ECE students, which left the other 86% of non-ECE. We have 80% of those students were free or reduced lunch. We are a Title I school, so the majority of our students, over 75%, are free or reduced lunch. This school year, we've had a 10% increase in ECE students who have received referrals. So the corresponding with that, the decrease of non-ECE has went down. And then also we've had a decrease of our Title I students and getting referrals. That has went down to 75%. So our normal population students who are not on free or reduced lunch has increased roughly 4.5%. So the most disturbing thing here is that we have the increase in ECE referrals, and that makes it's a twofold problem, because not only are they required by law to get certain services, and if they're disrupting classrooms and missing out on services, then laws are being broken. Secondly, they're limited by the number of days that they can actually be suspended from school if it happens to be something that it leans towards the more violent area. They're limited to 10 days. So as a principal, you have to be very careful and pick and choose your battles as to when that student needs to just have a day, so to speak. Not that we want to suspend any students, but suspendable offenses have to be used very carefully with students with special needs and disabilities. So that one is definitely an alarming trend, and something that definitely needs to keep an eye on. I would say that having a mental health resource person or mental health coach is probably something that would be very useful going forward to next year. And I know, as we've talked about in our budget planning this year, that seems to be on the table, that a mental health person could be hired as a permanent person in the building. Here's our racial and gender breakdown. Last year, African American students made up 177 of the events, which was 39% of overall behavior events. Our white students